Fat American, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes? Back in 2020, when they mic'd up Chase against the Steelers, Ben asked why was he in coverage. He said, "I don't know. Ask the coaches." Made me think there was some friction even then. He said, and well, we know the rest. I already told you he wasn't happy here, but I don't think it had anything to do with I don't think the friction starts that far back in 2020 in his rookie season. Everything was all good. I think the friction began that offseason of his going into his second year when Ron Rivera made the comment about him and Montez Sweat not acting like they had already arrived. Remember, Chase was the only guy that didn't show up at the OTAs. He was shooting commercials, Family Feud, Chipotle, all that shit during OTAs, and he didn't show up. And then he went out and had a sack and a half through 8 games and, wasn't disciplined. And Ronald called him and Sweat out and pretty much said they're freelance and doing their own thing. They're going too far up the field. And that's where the friction began, right? And it only got worse. And I felt like the final straw was when he got hurt. Fans turned on him. So there wasn't, this is a hometown kid we're talking about. So fans turned on him and they didn't support him during his injury. All you heard about was he's a bust. He only had a sack and a half before he got hurt. The defense is better without him. It's the same shit you see. Like, as a Grizzlies fan, I would hear stupid shit like that when Ja would be out and we would win games. This team's better off without Ja. Shut up. You dummy. Shut the hell up. No way, right? No way the team was better without Chase Young. But he hears that stuff. And then, move that stuff aside, though, because really that's ancillary. What people say outside the building doesn't matter. What really mattered was they thought he could have come back. And I chronicled this last year, and I told you how they felt last year, right? And so I already gave you all of the sidebar conversation that led up to his frustration, okay? I talked about they thought he would be ready for the second Eagles game on Monday Night Football. He wasn't ready. The next week, they said, okay, he'll be ready next week against Houston. Oh, it's turf. He's like, nah, I don't want to play on turf for my first game back. Okay, don't worry about it. We got the Falcons next week at home. You'll be back for that game. And then it was raining that day. And so he's like, yeah, you don't want to come back in a rainy condition, my first game back. Let's wait till next week. And then the next week was the Giants on the road. Nobody's going to come back their first game at MetLife. Hell no. So he's like, okay, everybody just assume. After the bye week, it makes a ton of sense. After the bye week, he should be ready. Give him all the time he needs. He can ramp up. Yeah, bye week, biggest game of the season, biggest game at home at FedEx Field in years. Perfect conditions, great night. Chase Young in civvies on the sidelines. That was the night that Ron and company said, F him. We're not picking up the 5th-year option. He can kiss our ass. And from that point forward, it was a fractured relationship. They were already frustrated with him. And he strung that. They had already been told by the doctors, hey, this dude's knee is fine. Now it's just up here. Week 10 going into the Eagles game, the second Eagles game, they had already been told by the doctors, knee's fine. It was all Chase and it was all up here. So they're like waiting for Chase to just give them the clearance. Hey, go ahead, man. When you're ready, do your thing. Chase even said, it's on me. I get to decide when I come back. And then he started talking about how football don't define me and all of that shit. And again, ain't nobody trying to hear that shit. You're the number 2 overall pick. We need you out on the field. So once they didn't pick up the 5th-year option, Chase was done with them. They were done with Chase when he didn't come back in time for that Giants game. And he was done with them when they didn't pick up the 5th-year option. I don't know if we saw Chase smile once. This is a guy that you couldn't wipe the smile off of his face in his rookie season. The second year, you couldn't wipe the smile off of his face. Even when the man was in the midst of a 1.5 sack season, he kept talking about they come in bunches. He kept laughing and joking and kikiing because he was still in a good place mentally. It wasn't until he got injured and the fan base really didn't have his back And the coaching staff was trying to rush him back in his mind. And I don't think they were rushing him. You know, they were told by the doctors, he's medically good. The knee is stable. He's fine. He's cleared for contact. It's all up to Chase now. It's about him clearing those mental hurdles. And they thought he should have cleared those mental hurdles a lot sooner. They were okay with him missing games that they ultimately won. Beat the Eagles, so it's okay. Beat the Texans, so it's okay. Beat the Falcons, so it's okay. You tie the Giants, though. All right, I need you back for this Giants game. This is a big one. He doesn't come back and you lose. All right. Then he comes back against the 49ers, but by that time, you're thinking to yourself, just a little too late. You know, too little, too late. But hey, cool. We appreciate it, though. But damage is already done. Now we're not picking up the fifth-year option. And at that point, now Chase is like, oh, that's how we're going to play it? You're not going to pick up the fifth-year option? And you could tell he didn't want to be here. There was no love in that building for him. And so Chase had turned cold. And I told you, I said, Chase ain't happy. You can see it. Everything he was doing at that point was for self. You know? He played for his brothers and, you know, you're not trying to let your teammates down, but he could give two shits about the organization at that point. Like, those press conferences, those locker room scrumps. First of all, Chase Young's one of the faces of the franchise. How many times did he actually sit at the podium behind the microphone during the season? How many times did he do that? I can answer that for you. 0. They would go to Kendall Fuller. Jonathan Allen would stand behind the podium after a loss or even a win. They go to Kendall Fuller after he makes a big play. Never Chase Young. Why? Because Chase was done. They would go to his locker. Chase would not smile. It was like a hostage video every single time. You asked him a question, you'd be lucky to get 3 or 4 words out of him as an answer. Man, nah, I'm cool though. Yeah, man, I ain't tripping off none of that. That's all you were getting. You know, he wasn't smiling. He had already made up in his mind, I don't F with none of these dudes. I don't F with the media, the fans, none of this shit. I'm done. And that's why I was like, you got to trade this dude. In my mind, I'm saying that because I don't think he wants to be here. Well, they made the right decision, and I wish him nothing but the best. And, you know, I saw the press conference today. I heard everything he said. I got no beef, no issues with nothing that he said. The man wasn't happy. Let him be free. The last thing I want to do is hold a player hostage. I'm not here trying to shoot hostage videos and put a gun to somebody's head to make them play for my organization. You don't want to be here? That's cool. You're free. You're free to go. Joe Gibbs, I love him to death. You know why? Because Joe Gibbs was never about forcing anybody to stay somewhere they didn't want to be. When Joe Gibbs got here and Lavernius Coles wanted out, he said, hey, let me help you. Give me 1 second. I'm going to work the phones. Come back and see me in a week. I'm going to get you out of here. Like, you ain't got to twist my arm. Champ Bailey, you don't want to be here? I'm going to get you out of here. No worries. You ain't even got a trip. I'll take care of it. First thing he did when he got here was he got Champ Bailey the hell up out of here. I'm not saying I loved it as a fan, but I understand it. If he didn't want to be here, which Champ didn't, all right, let's go. Move him. Fat American, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, true, but Ron still took the low road and then tried to play dumb as if he didn't say anything. Starting to lose respect for that good man acting two-faced. Yeah, I told y'all when it happened, when that whole little report got out and Ron tried to play the dumb role, like he didn't know how it got out. He got it from you. That's your boy. That's your guy that leaked it. So where do we naturally think he got it from? Michael Silver is your boy. So yeah, that pissed me off because I told you I'm not this organization has taken the low road for decades under Daniel Snyder. So as far as I'm concerned, I ain't looking to take nothing but high roads at this point because we've done the low road thing. We've looked to smear people, smear their names through the mud. We've looked to drag people through the mud and put dirt and kick dirt on people's names on the way out. That's been our move. Always trying to save face and look like, hey, it wasn't us, it was them. Did it to Kirk, did it to Dwayne Haskins, did it to Scott McCloughan, and they did it again here, right? Did it to Junior Gillette, even though that was a messy situation, but that's always been their move. And so did it to Trent, right? Even though I think Trent had culpability in that situation as well. He wasn't completely innocent, but still, that's always been their move. And when Ron got here, it wasn't supposed to be the move anymore. And then when he did it to Dwayne, I was like, oh, you on that same shit too. And the question was, were you infected? Did you get here and did they sink their teeth into you as well? Because we know that whole environment with Ron, Daniel Snyder and company, that shit is toxic. And if you come in, you get infected too. But now he's not there anymore and you're still doing the same shit. So that tells me that's who you are. That's part of your character. I don't like that shit. Andre Darden says, know you heard the Chase Young sound bites from today. Why fans mad at him? He said nothing wrong. Because fans are going to fan. That's why. Fans are always going to find a reason to be upset. Whether it's, he didn't write us a goodbye note. He didn't tell us thank you. For what? Y'all turned your back on him. That's part of the reason he wasn't happy here. And look, it's not everybody. And you could have been one of the supportive fans, right? The ones that's crying for a thank you like Tez sent on IG, right? Tez's experience here and Chase's experience here are two different experiences. The fan base never turned their back on Chase or Tez. Not once. There was at least 50% of this fan base that called him a bust while he was out. 50% of the fan base. And I'm supposed to tell you thank you when I leave? You're part of the reason I was miserable and I wanted out. I had no issues with nothing he said. His whole demeanor changed. I told you I'm a psychology guy, so I'm always looking at body language. I'm always looking at how guys were, how they are, and what's the difference? What changed? I'm always reading between the lines. That's how my brain works. And I told y'all, Chase ain't smiled once this season. Happy-go-lucky Chase died in 2021, and that guy never returned. Never returned.
LouieTeeNetwork.